surrounded by nature.
And nature will always prevail.
Yeah, it really does. And it doesn't get caught up in the things that it's missing out on. You know, it just goes, all right, I got to shift, I got to change, I got to grow something else. And it is very, it's productive in a way that doesn't have an ego, which is just beautiful. So I think that that's what nourishes our soul when we reconnect with nature.
It doesn't get caught up in the shoulds.
It does not. It farks all the shoulds.
It farks all the shoulds.
Yeah, it's the original should fucker.
It is.
Welcome, Quanta folks, to episode 12 of Faark the Shoulds podcast vlogcast. I am Jodi from QuantiMama.
And I'm McGill from QuantiPapa.
And today we are discussing water. Be like water, my friend.
As Bruce Lee would say.
Exactly right. So, and I'm not entirely sure if he actually said my friend. I've always thought that was a bit sad when I was trying to verify that perhaps he didn't, because I was like, it's quite a neat little statement, isn't it?
It is. So it could be like those famous movie lines that we always misquote.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be the wrong person.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. But, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
The topic in this case.
Oh, correct. That's right. The inspo for the convo. Today we're talking about water and blessings to McGill. He's in a place of trust and surrender yet again.
Totally. I do love it with a lot of these podcasts where Jodi says, I want to talk about this. And we're like, well, okay, can you give me some form of idea or framework? And just like today, generally the answer is no.
Yeah, we're talking about water.
So we're talking about water.
Yeah. I mean, I really like the statement, be like water, my friend. Be like water, because the idea of water as a analogy or a framework for doing life is about going with the flow, for want of a better term. But it's not about being complacent in the way that you allow your life to unfold. It's about allowing energetic forces to guide you as well, and noticing, obviously, when life feels turbulent, what do you need to look at as a way to then get back in the flow? And I think that often what we do is we outsource those things. We think acquiring new whatevers, whether it's looking for a new place to live or a new car or just simply going shopping or taking yourself off to the movies for some escapism or whatever it might be. They might be opportunities to create change and create a break, but generally speaking, the momentum for creating sustaining and nourishing decisions will come from within. And the reason why I say that is I really feel like we have our own guidance system within, as in our own set of instructions within, and that's absolutely attributed to the amazing work of Jacqueline Hobbs from Oracle Girl. And I really like the idea. Well, I mean, I really resonate with the idea that we have our own instructions. I think that's incredibly powerful and quite reassuring, because it means that no matter what happens, we constantly come back to, how does that sit with me? Is it right for me? Is it right for me right now? And allowing for life to take us on a flow in that way, and noticing the turbulence and finding ways to negotiate that.
It's also putting a trust in yourself, and a belief in yourself. I mean, at the end of the day, you're in this world. If you're constantly looking for external validation, then are you ever going to be satisfied?
I just don't think you can be.
Yeah,
I don't think it's possible.
That's the question.
I mean, that's the rule of thumb with people that have lots of money. Are they generally happy? I don't see a lot of happiness that equates with having a lot of money. I mean, I know it makes it a lot more pleasurable to be miserable, but I think that all those external signifiers and essentially band-aids, they don't maketh the person happy, because within your own belief system, having a sense of trust within yourself is incredibly powerful. And it doesn't mean that you need that all the time. In episode 11, we were talking about the fact that I was allowing the funkiness of just tech and then a few other things that came up that, I needed to say to McGill that I decided in a really opportune moment just before recording the podcast to let him know. Timing is everything.
Nothing like keeping me on my game.
Oh, yeah, that's how I roll. But those things, they can come up. But again, water would be allowed to flow, and so the emotions, the energy in motion is allowed to flow. And so I just think water as an analogy for life is just so beautiful, and one that if we feel disconnected from, we can bring into reality, because we are very physical beings. I mean, you can approach life as esoterically as you like, but the reality is you're going to brush your teeth when you get up in the morning, and you're going to go for a cup of coffee because you feel tired, and you're going to,
we're going to interact with life. You have to live life.
There's a physical element.
World. We have not mastered breatharianism, so we do need to eat.
That's right.
So there's a huge physical aspect to us. And I mean, water is just such a huge topic.
Yes.
Because it goes beyond just that whole thing of being like water.
Yes, that's right.
You can give 1,000,001 allergies of water, but at the end of the day, it is effectively our life source.
Yes, absolutely. It really is.
Take oxygen off the planet, we can't breathe, we're gone. Take water off the planet, we can't drink, we're gone.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's really interesting because when you consider the body, they say 70% water, but when you actually include, interstitial and intercellular spaces, when they look at all the spaces of the body, the water content is more like 99% or something insane. Like, it's just so high. It's in the 90s anyway. It's very scientific fact. But it's very high, it's not just in your vascular system and in the obvious places. So we are intrinsically connected with water, just as energy moves through water, and it's a conduit for energy. The reason why I was really interested to talk about water is that it's always been a feature of your life. Like, it's a BJ, right? It's a before Jodi phenomenon in your life. You've always been connected with water, even when you lived in the concrete jungle, or the suburgatory, as I would call it. But, when you lived there and you didn't have access to the ocean, it was really a counterpoint that you would use for rebalancing, and particularly as, I guess, work stuff became a bit more intense with the work that you were doing. I'm interested to know about how your relationship with water has evolved over the last, what is it, like approaching 40 years, something like that, 35 years? And because I'm a Johnny-come-lately to water,
Well, you say that, but it depends on what limitations you're putting on water. I mean, you work in a leisure centre where you're a pool lifeguard, so you were still interacting with water. But
that's equal parts urine. I'm sorry, but
if the body's 99%,
I know
you've got to accept
there's a lot of wastewater. It's like being in a treatment plant.
No, I'm being.
I know you are. No, but I didn't consider myself. I didn't consider myself a water person, and particularly when we talk about the beach and the ocean is the one where we really have a reference point, because we're blessed to, have access to that.
And you've highlighted that. I've always had a call and a pull towards the beach and the ocean.
Yes.
If I'm on the beach, I want to be in the water.
Yes.
It's as simple as that. So for whatever reason, the movement and the energy and the feeling of the water against your skin is something that's always appealed to me, and always been one of those driving factors for me of, I guess some people would call it earthing, some people would call it, getting back to nature. For me, it's an instantaneous thing the second that I touch the ocean. And that's all it has to be. And it's probably been one of those things that, especially I guess when we were younger, we'd go on holidays to the beach, and remember 90 Mile Beach, maybe. My sister and I both had swimming lessons for years, and neither mum or dad could swim, and they both said, "Oh, go for a swim." So off we went. We just disappeared. Went out, swum past the breakers, having a great time, and then swum back in, and mum and dad were panicking because we'd gone outside of their area they could control. And we're only 10 or 11 at the time.
Yeah.
But I was immediately comfortable in the ocean, always have been. And it's always something that's called to me, hence the reason why those we now live near the ocean because it was always where I was going to go. And then I guess later in life, as I got my own license and that sort of stuff, I tried surfing across the years, and that became a real focal point for me. And year round, it didn't matter if it was freezing cold or boiling hot. If I could be in the water surfing, and even around the surfing, if there was no surf, I'd go swimming or I'd go snorkeling again back in the ocean most of the time, but I'd still go to other places. But it's always been a place, I think, where I've been able to just let go of lots of stuff. I think I said in episode 11 that, you know, we have so much stuff that we sort of carry around with us, and we focus on or we don't focus on. And I've always found that when I've gotten into the water, I've been able to just leave everything else behind.
Do you think you had that, I guess that, I mean, that's a very sort of mature articulation of your process of what happens in the water. Do you think you were doing that unconsciously or consciously when you were a teenager surfing? Like I think about teenagehood, and it's just, I mean, it was kind of angsty when we were teenagers. It's the pits now. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be a teenager for quids now with devices and social media and the, you know, just the immediacy of information. Being a teenager, I think, is you need spaciousness to work out who on earth you are, and these days it's difficult. But there was enough difficulties. When way back in the dark ages before electricity was developed, when we were teenagers. So
I wonder if our parents have the same opinion.
About water or teenagers?
No, about our teenage years.
In what way?
Well, I wonder if they looked at it and went, geez, these poor kids, they're so bombarded with everything.
Yeah.
We had this different upbringing where life was a little bit simpler. There was less to get in your way, whereas now, I guess for us, you know, we're probably getting barraged by TV and themes on TV that, you know, that sort of stuff, as opposed to now we look back on our kids and go, Jesus.
Yeah.
They're just getting bombarded with everything.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you'd have a hard time convincing me that it's...
Oh, I'm just asking the question.
I'm sure there's that perception, but I really, really would not wish this time now. It's just there's no simplification of this life at the moment unless it's really managed at a family level. You know, nowhere else do I see in kids' extracurricular activities the opportunity for spaciousness, except maybe kids' yoga. Maybe kids dance, maybe some of those movement things that are mindful, like martial arts and things like that. There's an opportunity to slow down.
But again, that's got to talk to the individual.
Correct. That's right. Involved. Yeah.
I don't know. What I'd say is I've always felt a calling. And I do remember being in my early 20s, and when I'd have some ups and downs, we were fortunate enough to have a place near the beach that we could go to. And I would often just take off for sometimes a day or a couple of days, and just with the full intention of getting into the water to some degree. And I could always draw a picture of sometimes at some really hard points in my life where I've been standing waiting to go into the water and stripping off, putting on a wetsuit or whatever it is, and feeling that as you're doing that you're just leaving everything behind and paddling out into the water with the express intention in mind of going, I'm leaving all that behind, and then doing whatever and just being in that moment for the next hour and a half or 2 hours or however long it is, and then coming back in and making a conscious decision not to pick up that baggage again.
Oh, so you were littering.
I was leaving my emotional baggage there for somebody else to pick up.
Oh, that's nice of you. Is that a trash and treasure situation?
I was giving it back to the fact I didn't need it.
Yeah.
And I really remember that strongly from probably my early 20s. So probably about 22, 23. And then it became much more of a focal thing for me when I sort of hit the mid-20s and had different complications in life and changes of jobs and different expectations. So I would say to you it wasn't a conscious thing when I was young, but it definitely became more of a conscious thing as I moved through my 20s into my 30s. And even now I can often get out in the water, or it's my outlet. And I'm grounded and earthed when I come back from a surf.
More than that, I know what you're like when you haven't been for a surf. You're like a class A shit. So, McGill is having his mantrams all over the place when he hasn't surfed for a while. So, which is great when you actually know the key to de-stressing for your partner, and that can be provided fairly readily. So
it can, and I think I don't know how to explain it beyond its connection of really feeling comfort with it, and maybe it's all those years of hearing how amazing water is. Having said that, I mean, the ocean is clearly my calling, but I would happily swim in a river, a mountain stream, a lake, anywhere where there is, I would call it a natural source of water.
Yes.
To some degree.
Yes. Even if it's naturally filled up. Yeah.
Yeah.
It might be a man-made dam, but
But as a general rule, it's been filled with
rainwater
or water off a mountain or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm really drawn to water that moves. I think my relationship with water, I tried to force the change initially because I became a lifeguard. So that was kind of hilarious. I was someone that hated swimming, and then just became a pool lifeguard, not a real lifeguard that has to go in the waves, like one that goes in an indoor pool with all the urine. But I had to learn to swim and things like that. So there was a real challenge there. And I do like the idea of trying to master those things. So, that discomfort of swimming is like really abjectly uncomfortable. I have a real sense of like I could drown. Okay. I know. So there's something in there that needs to be healed and released, and it will do it in its own time. But I think that forcing myself and becoming familiar with water was sort of useful in my early 20s. But when my water experience really changed my relationship with water was when we birthed our second. So we opted to have a water birth, and in the conscious decision of choosing to do that, and that was based not on my comfort, but based because I had no idea what water could really do. I'd done a dry birth in a hospital previously, and so I just thought that birth was going to be fairly taxing, much like a marathon. But when we birthed QK2 at home in water, the decision, as I said, was not about my comfort. It was about our baby's comfort, thinking, okay, well, they've been in their own little water immersion for up to 9 months. So let's replicate that by creating that environment for them to birth into so that it doesn't feel as strong a transition or a shock for the baby, because I do think there must be an impact for babies that are born as dry births, because they've gone from this warm, wet, lovely, dark environment to then having all the pressure changes, the coolness of the environment, the noise of the environment, that transition of pressure changing as well as being in a sort of brighter environment that's more sterile. It must be affecting in some fashion, So that was the reason for the water birth, but the experience of being in water whilst in labour was so amazing. Like, it just changes sensations in the most extraordinary way. And I learned to hypoventilate in a really incredible way. Like, I could get my breathing, my respiratory rate down to around 2 a minute. Like, it was just insane. I've never hypoventilated like that before. I've now become someone who's a bit more practiced at that, thanks to the amazing teachings of like Wim Hof and those sort of people that advocate for that sort of very intentional breathing where you can drop your respiratory rate. But yeah, the impact of making a decision to birth in water, we did that then for the 3 children after, and it was like I'd never give birth any other way. But it made me then appreciate how water could be a loving friend or a loving support, and that's then how it's moved into this next level. Because I think what happens is I get comfortable and then I'm like, Okay. What's next? Give me something else, just to, because I want to find comfort in the discomfort. And I literally was saying this to our daughter last night. One of the great joys and understanding your power in life is finding comfort in the discomfort. So you intentionally take yourself out of your comfort zone and you find a space there that you can, at least enjoy or, appreciate the experience. You don't have to love it, but so what I was going to say was my thing of taking like a warm water birth is so comfortable. Dipping in the ocean, different story. And now obviously dipping in the ocean during winter, really, really different story.
And
like it's an assault.
This is where we're getting to, isn't it? The fact that you've gone from, Jodi didn't even like sand.
I'm still not a huge fan of sand.
Which is just horrifying to me.
Well, it's how much I love you is that I will move anywhere you like.
But when you started to immerse yourself into the ocean a few times, I remember we were away on a holiday with our good friends.
Yeah.
And we're staying at Browley and we're up on top of the hill. And I just remember looking down and seeing you and Tans running into the ocean because you'd been basically coerced into it.
Yes.
By your friend, and so off you went and you did it. And
my love for her was as equally great as it was for you. So she's the only one who could talk me into that.
And
she did, and I loved it.
You did. You came back and you were on such a buzz.
Yeah.
And that's led to you basically, spending almost every day of the year.
Yeah.
Going in the water.
Yeah.
Rain,
winter, I'm a bit flakier during winter.
No, we're all a bit shy in winter.
Yeah.
But
but it's extraordinary, isn't it? And what I appreciate is there's a couple of things, and I was reminded of this again this morning because we're a little bit inconsistent with winter. I think that if you're feeling a little bit tired or a bit like your system's feeling a bit immune, perhaps you don't want to be in cold therapy quite like that. But once you're in, there's extraordinary things that happen in your body, and I think it's given me appreciation for those things we were talking about, that innate ability to self-heal, the innate ability to self-regulate, the innate ability of the body to work harmoniously, to stabilize and to create its own homeostasis, and that will vary for different people, but I see that when you put the body in extreme places and the mind as well, when you hop into the ocean and it's not terribly cold in there. It's about 10 degrees. It's plenty cold as far as I'm concerned. But, we're just in bathers and willingly walking into the water with every step thinking, oh, my God, get me out of here.
Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Why again?
But once you go under and you push through the discomfort of about 3 minutes of being in there, what happens is the body, this has been our experience, the body almost lights its own inferno inside of you. And we call it the switch. And I think lots of people, when they do these kind of cold immersion dips, like whether that's, doing this kind of ice bath practice, with breathing, which is still amazing, or whether they're dipping in the ocean, and often they'll sort of jump in, splash around, get wet, and then get out. They don't ever give themselves the opportunity of really experiencing what the body can do. And that's when it goes into that hyper, central heating switched on to the max, doesn't it? Like you feel like you're burning inside in the most beautiful way.
It does. And I think you potentially get to the point where an ice bath's a great example.
Yes.
Because I hadn't done one because I hadn't had a calling to it. And I had the opportunity to do an ice bath. And then the challenge was set, you've got to stay in the water for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And I got in and it was cold. It was maybe, it was really cold.
Well, they got ice in there, so that helps.
But the whole thing was, at no point in time, I managed to flip the switch in that time because I was well practiced with that. And so I was quite comfortable, but I wasn't comfortable enough to flick the next switch, which is into letting my mind go and relax and immerse myself and really enjoy the experience, because it was at that point where it was just too much.
Yes.
At that point in time. And there are some people who can sit in those ice baths and probably achieve that, whereas for me, that's not possible. And for me, it's moving water. And that clearly is something that now resonates with you as well. I mean, you're in the ocean and it has that, it's always moving.
Yes.
And
well, it's an artificial thing in an ice bath. I understand why you do it. There's a practicality to it, but
there's huge health benefits.
Oh, and absolutely, there's huge health benefits. However, I really just love being in alignment with nature, and so I'm like, if I can have an artificial version and I can have a real version, give me the real version that exists in nature, because I feel like there'll be far more benefits and things that we might not even be aware of. We know obviously that the things that are within the ocean waters, they affect our adrenals in such an incredible way. The magnesium that's in there, that you just soak it in, and it can really help the body heal what ails it. Not only the mind, for quietening it and conquering it, which is always looking for comfort.
But I think with water, because it's such an integral part of our lives, and we live on an island, so we're surrounded by it.
Yes.
But not everyone's near the water, and I think this is where perception and intention becomes really important, because
Yes.
I know when I wasn't near the water, I would love the immersion of being in a shower. Something quite simple, quite achievable, but the feeling of, if we get messy or dirty or smelly, teenage boys especially.
Yes.
The immersion into the shower, and whether it's probably not necessarily a conscious thing, but you go in there, probably it's a conscious thing, sorry. You go in there knowing what you're going to get out of it, that you are washing your body clean.
Yes.
And you are letting it go. And if you take that a step further and go, okay, I'm stepping in to wash my body.
Yes.
I'm going to wash my mind is not exactly what I want to say. I'm going to wash this away at the same time, or I'm not going to let that go and flow away with the water.
Yeah.
And
you're going to allow for that movement to occur, something to shift.
Something to shift. And so letting go of a lot of the stressing stuff and a lot of the things that trigger and that sort of stuff, for me, it's not just the ocean is probably the big reset.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate enough now that I get there all the time. But there were times where I remember just, getting into a shower and just turning on the water and just standing there and just trying because I was a lot younger, but just let it all go.
Yeah.
And wherever you are, water has that ability, whether it's
you can imprint water. I mean, there's tremendous information and research out there of people that have, put energy into water and then being able to record the patterns that's made. Like, it's extraordinary. So there's an opportunity when we're engaging this water, exactly as you're saying, to bring that intention and bring that energy almost as a how do I want to phrase this? Like a way to show up as well, fully formed and committing to, raising the frequency of this beautiful interaction that happens between you and water. This, like when we dip in the ocean or anywhere we get to, hop in the water, we create this mental blessing of just being so grateful to have the opportunity to have that immersion. And I just think that, there's lots of great information out there. That there's a fantastic movie documentary that you can watch about the impact and how water can retain information. Like, it's just wild. And it's so we're so desensitized to it because it just comes out of a tap. We don't even think about it half the time, So I think there's a beautiful opportunity to be really have a far more loving, intentional relationship with water. And the last thing I just wanted to finish with was, and I know that obviously you've shared this with me, but I just think it's so beautiful to share with others, is that next level of relationship that you have with water when you're actually on a surfboard and working in harmony with the wave. Like, just tell us a bit about that, because I feel like, you have this really poetic way of describing it, but it's just beautiful. And I think that lots of us won't experience that. Like, I tried surfing and it was just a dead fail. So I was like, I'm going to find something else to do. Going to accept that one as maybe not on the bucket list.
But it was a dead fail for me for many years. It was just, consistency and doing it. And I'm just trying to think of how it. So it's that moment where you have to work with nature, full stop. You have to work with what is thrown at you. So if there's not a good wave, there's not a good wave. If there is, then you've got to be in the right spot. You've got to work to be with it. And then once you catch a wave or you're into a wave, be it that even if you're body surfing, feeling how the water is moving around you, feeling how it's moving around your body. For me, it's surfing, as we've mentioned. But it's that moment where you are moving with the water, and you're almost, yes, you're standing on your board, but you are just shooting down that line, and you are so in tune with every little movement of the wave, movement of the water, how it affects you, how your body reacts to that, how the surfboard reacts, and the feeling that, for me, it's the closest I think I could ever be to flying.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a massive wave, just one that's really pushing you along, and you are so in tune with the water, with the wave at that point in time, that you're just flowing and you're going. You can't make it go any faster. You can't make it. Well, you can make it go slower on on the surfboard, and faster, but you can't change the pace of the wave. The wave is the wave.
No,
it is the constant.
Yeah.
And you are literally trying to tap into that just to get that real connection out of it. And that's what I find when I'm in the water and I'm surfing and I'm catching good waves. Some of them, you'll get a really steep takeoff or a late takeoff, and you'll feel like your heart's in your mouth for that fraction of a second. And then when you hook into that wave and you can put a hand back and you can feel the water as it just sort of flows over your fingers, or off you go. But you always get a solid reminder at the end of the wave, because it peters out or it crunches or it lets go and it puts you back into the ocean. It's a very nice reminder that you can sit in flow for that period of time. You get knocked out of it, and then you got to go back and
then you forgive her and you jump back on.
Jump straight back out there. Go out for another one because you can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think it's such a beautiful description, and I don't know that I have any of those experiences. The only thing I can think of that's so similar, but not really, is when we're in the ocean, I'm floating over the waves. I love that, but it's not quite the same thing. But it's still a feeling of being in partnership, but you're definitely like the lesser partner, that the wave is doing all the heavy lifting.
You just feel supported.
Yeah, it's almost like she's gone, are you with me or against me? Because if you're against me, I'm going to dump on you. But if you're with me, I'll give you a nice little ride. It's very thoughtful.
That is a great way to be able to, when you can switch off to that point. Even if it's not necessarily with water. We obviously choose water because it's a topic that we know a lot about, because we've immersed ourselves in it. But other people will have other areas where they can do that.
Yeah.
And reach that level of switching off, or getting so in alignment with nature that you feel that you understand your role in it all.
Well, it's the elements, isn't it? I mean, you could be really loving, wind.
Oh, yeah.
And air. You could be really loving earthing
amongst a huge forest.
Yeah, that's right.
Standing next to a tree that's been there since time immemorial, and just breathing in that air and that aura that tree has.
And so I think, in conclusion, the thought or the invitation I'd like to, offer people is that if you're feeling like your day is a bit out of whack, or your week is a bit out of whack, or your 5 minutes is a bit out of whack, then look around you and just notice how much nature is in your space right at that minute. And if it's not very much, give yourself an opportunity to change that and see if that makes a difference. Because again, just remembering that nature is so much more comprehensive. Like, anywhere you look outside, you see nature. You look up, you look down, you look sideways, you look behind you, and you're surrounded by nature.
And nature will always prevail.
Yeah, it really does. And it doesn't get caught up in the things that it's missing out on. It just goes, all right, I got to shift, I got to change, I got to grow something else. And it is very it's productive in a way that doesn't have an ego, which is just beautiful. So I think that that's what nourishes our soul when we reconnect with nature.
It doesn't get caught up in the shoulds.
It does not. It farks all the
It
shoulds.
farks all the shoulds.
Yeah.
It goes,
It's the original should fucker.
it is, but that's the whole thing. Nature is, and our connection back to nature for us comes through water. So
I do like trees and air, though, I have to say.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like my happy little
bubble.
Well, I was going to say like trifecta. Yeah, I'd be so happy with that. Thanks for listening, beautiful people.
Yeah, and get out there and immerse yourselves.
Yeah. Be well.